View of our study guide, our Unit 1 study guide. So, number 1 says which is most likely the first step in solving the equation. So, looking at this equation here, the first thing I would do is get all of my variables to one side. So, I would get all my variables to the left and my constants to the right. So what I would need to do is move this x over to the left side. So whenever you're moving things across the equal sign, you need to move the opposite. So the opposite of positive x is a negative x. So I'm going to move a negative x, or subtract an x from both sides, and that's going to be a. All right, number 2, Maria is solving the following equation. They show all her steps. What's the next step? So looking here, that's where we're focusing on. Again, get all the variables on one side and all the constants on the other. So I would go ahead and I would move that 4x over to the 12x. I'd move that 4x over to the 12x. The way that we move it across the equal sign is we would subtract 4x from both sides. All right, and when we do that, this is what we get. We'll have 8x minus 16 equals a negative 2. And that matches exactly with A here. All right, moving right along. Number 3, Kilby is solving this equation. They show the steps again. So if you notice, most of the times, like, I just try to see what the question's talking about. But really, I just want to see what is the real question. So most times you don't have to read through the entire thing. All right. So what I would do is I would look at step 2, and I see for step 2 here, we have the 10 attached to parentheses, so I know I can go ahead and distribute. So I'm going to distribute the 10 to both the 2x and the 4. So when I do that, I'll have the 8x plus 24 is not touched, but then 10 times 2x is 20x, and 10 times 4 is 40. So what matches that is A again. All right, moving along. Number 4, and I'm just going to go ahead and take this away here. Number 4, consider the equation. What could be the next step? So what I would do is I would honestly get rid of like all of the fractions. So if you notice, both our fractions that we have here is 1/2 and negative 3/4. I would get rid of those two. I know that both of them are divisible by 4, so I would actually multiply everything by 4. That would have been my first step here. And if I did that, then I need to know what actually it would look like. Okay, so what it look like here, I just have to multiply that, and here I have 2 different terms, so I'd have to multiply twice. All right, so this I would have 2 times 6 plus 2x is going to equal 4 times 4, which is 16, minus 3/4 times 4, which is 3, up against 8x minus 4. All right, and that'll be 8x minus 4 there. You're welcome. All right, so then if I look here, this actually matches exactly with C here. What I did when I taught this lesson, I made sure that I wanted all of my students to understand that whenever you see a fraction, don't get scared of the fraction, just get rid of it. And the reason that you can do that is you can get rid of any fraction by multiplying the whole equation by the denominator. Okay, and that's what's super important here is you got to remember that you're multiplying the entire equation by the denominator, not just the fraction, because you have to keep your equation balanced. All right, so moving right along. Number 5, we're solving for m, and they say that here. They say show the mass, and mass is m. All right, so I'm looking to get this m by itself. So the first thing I would need to do is get rid of my fraction. So I see a fraction, I'm going to get rid of it by multiplying the entire equation by the denominator. So pi d cubed. All right, I'm going to multiply by this term and by the term on the left. All right, when I do that, I'll get density, and I'll just kind of shorthand that, times pi d cubed, and that's going to equal 6m. Well, I need m by itself again, right? That's still my goal. So I'm going to divide both sides by 6. All right, when I do that, then I'm left with this amount here. Okay, so this is my final answer here. All right, with no 6. And the one that matches that the most is C here. Okay, so I've got density times pi d cubed over 6. There we go. All right, number 6. They tell us we're solving for h here. Solve for h. So I need to isolate that h. So the first thing I'm going to do is move away the term that's being added on to h. So I'm going to subtract it away because I need it away from there. So I got to move it to the other side. So minus 2 pi r squared on both sides. All right, when I'm doing that, it's going to be gone from the left. I'm sorry, gone from the right. And I'll have a minus 2 pi r squared is equal to 2 pi r h. But we want h alone. So I've got to move the 2 pi r away from it. And it's attached through multiplication. Okay, they're all stuck together. That's multiplication. Okay, when they're kind of stuck together. Alright, so I'm going to divide by 2 pi r to get rid of the 2 pi r. Okay, or I'm sorry, I'm going to divide because the opposite of multiplication is division, and that will move it away. Alright, so then I'm left with h is equal to a minus 2 pi r squared over 2 pi r. And that matches a here. Oh. All right, number 7. They ask us to solve for r, and then they tell us what the circumference is. All right, so the equation is c equals 2 pi r. All right, I want to solve for r, so I'm going to divide both sides by 2 pi. All right, so I'm going to do that, and when I do that, I get that r is equal to circumference over 2 pi. So I'm going to go ahead and eliminate the options that don't have a 2 pi as a denominator, and that's b and d are completely out. All right, and then finally, they tell us that the circumference is 14 pi. Well, circumference is c, so just plug it in to your equation that you just did, and you've got r is equal to circumference, which is 14 pi over that 2 pi that we said, and that matches c. All right, number 8, we're solving for HO, which is just our initial, we're solving for VO, which is our initial velocity. So we're solving here. So I need to go ahead and move away these two terms. All right, they've got to go. I'm going to take this off. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and do that. So I'm going to actually subtract HO here, and I'm going to do the opposite of the negative 16t squared and add it to make it move. So I'll do the same thing over here, minus HO and plus 16t squared. All right, when I do that, then I'm left with H minus HO plus 16t squared. I'm sorry. Yeah, my plus 16t squared is equal to VOT. But we only want the VO. So I'm going to then move that t away from it by dividing by t. And now I've got my final answer, where VO, the initial velocity, is equal to H minus H sub O plus 16t squared divided by t. And that is option C. All right, number 9. The formula for the area of a kite with a diagonal length A and B is given by this equation. Which equation? Alright, so we've got the area formula here, which is A equals AB over 2, which I know is confusing because they have both these ABs, or I'm sorry, both these A's are capital and lowercase, but just keep them as they are. So again, I've got a fraction. The first thing I'm going to do is get rid of that fraction by multiplying both sides by the denominator. And when I do that, it cancels on the right. So I've got 2 capitalized A is equal to AB. All right, I only want B. That's what they told me to look for. So I'm going to get the A away from it by dividing by the lowercase a. So B is equal to 2A over A. And that is my final answer. And the answer there is C. Number 10, what are the possible values of X for here? So all I'm going to do, again, get rid of the fraction. And what I'm going to do is multiply both sides by my denominator, which is 2. All right, 2 is gone here. All right, and then what I've got is negative 1, and then x plus 4 is less than or equal to 24. All right, I'm going to distribute that negative 1. So I've got negative x minus 4 is less than or equal to 24. I'm going to then add 4 to both sides to make that 4 go away. Alright, and I'm left with a negative x is less than or equal to 28. I can't have a negative x, so I'm going to flip everything to give it to make it a positive x. So this now becomes positive x. This inequality symbol has to flip as well because I'm really dividing by a negative. That's actually what's happening. So that's going to be greater than or equal to, and then the positive 28 becomes a negative 28. Alright, so when you have a negative coefficient, which means you'll eventually have to divide by a negative. You have to flip the symbol. And this happens for any inequality that you're solving, okay? No matter what you're doing, if you're going to end up dividing by a negative number, you've got to flip that symbol. All right, so my answer here was x is greater than or equal to negative 28. That is D. All right, number 11 was the solution. Again, I will get rid of my fraction first. I'm going to erase this so it looks so crazy. So I would go ahead and multiply both sides by my denominator, which is 3. Right, it goes here and it goes here. So remember, when you've got like this is actually like one big term, okay, because they're all stuck together. So what's in the parentheses is one term, and then we have that 1/3. It makes it all one term, so they're still stuck together. Okay, so I'm really multiplying 3 times a third, which is just 1. So I'll have 1. I really have 1 times 6x plus 6. So I can just drop that 1 because it doesn't really change what's going on there. Is less than or equal to 3 times negative 2 is negative 6 times x plus 3. I'm going to distribute here. So I'll have 6x plus 6 is less than or equal to negative 6x minus 18. Alright, I'm going to add 6x to both sides because just like with equations, I want to move all of my variable terms to the left and all my constants to the right. Okay, it makes it really easy to read off and to graph when it's like this. So that's what I am going to ask you guys to do. Alright, so 12x plus 6 is less than or equal to negative 18 minus 6. 12x is less than or equal to negative 24 and divide by 12. So x is less than or equal to negative 2. And I know all of these don't have the or equal to. That's what they should have. So the answer here would actually be C. Alright, number 12 says consider this inequality. Just taking that off so I don't get confused. Alright, number 12. So what I would do, go ahead and solve it. I'd subtract 14 from both sides. And I'd have negative 4n is greater than negative 36. Divide both sides by negative 4. I divided by negative. I got to flip my symbol. So n is now going to be less than positive 9, which is D. Alright, this one is talking about how would you answer this? What would be the next step here? So what you would do is you got to divide by negative 6 on both of them, right? So I've got to divide by negative 6 here and over here. Well, it's really trying to get you to realize the difference between an equation and an inequality. Well, with an equation, you can just divide by negative 6 and great. You got your answer that x is negative 3/2, right? You're great. Good, cool. But with an inequality, I've divided by a negative again. Okay, since I've divided by a negative, I've got to flip the symbol. Okay, that's what you got to remember to do. Okay, so change the less than is now going to become greater than. So the answer would now be x is greater than a negative 3/2. Okay, and what matches that is we know we're going to divide by negative 6 and less than becomes greater than. So that's A here. Okay, moving on to number 14. Jacinta buys 4 pounds of turkey and 2 pounds of ham. So I'm going to go ahead and write that out. So for turkey, so turkey is going to be T and my ham is going to be H. Plus the 2 pounds of ham is going to equal a total of $30. They also say the turkey, which is T, it cost $1.50 less than the ham, so it's going to be H minus 150. All right, so if I know that, I'm going to go ahead and substitute the value for T into my equation. So I will have 4 times H minus 150 plus the 2h equals 30. And I'm going to solve for ham first. So I'm going to distribute here. So I have 4h minus 6 plus 2h equals 30. You're going to combine like terms with the 4h and the 2h. That'll give you 6h minus 6 equals 30. I'm going to add 6 to both sides to get rid of the minus 6. So it's gone here. And I have 6h equals 36, and I'll divide by 6. So h is equal to 6. So the 1 pound of ham is equal to $6. All right, the turkey, if you recall, is $1.50 less than that. So the turkey is actually going to be 6 minus 150, which is $4.50. All right, so turkey is $4.50. Well, they ask us what's the combined cost of a pound of turkey and a pound of ham. So just add up 6 plus 450, and that gives you 1050. All right, number 15, the sum of 3 consecutive odd integers is 1 and 5. What are the 3 numbers? If there are 3 consecutive odd integers, I want you to visualize what that actually looks like. So the first number will be odd, I don't know it. The next one is actually even when I'm just counting, and then I've got odd, even, and odd. So my actual answers are here. All right, all these odd numbers, right? Well, the first odd number, I have absolutely no idea what it is. So I'm going to call it n. All right, the next one, the next even is going to be just n plus 1 because it's 1 more than n. Then n plus 2, n plus 3, n plus 4. So recall, we are going to look for these, right? These pinks. So the sum of numbers means I'm adding all the numbers up and they're going to equal, right? I'm adding all those up and it's going to equal the total, which is 105. So remember, my 3 numbers are n plus 2, and n plus 4. That's my equation. I'm going to solve that. And it's going to give me n, and then I'll fill it in. So I've got 3n plus 6 is going to equal 105. I just simplified. All right, I'll minus 6 on both sides. So I've got 3n is equal to 99. Divide by 3. N is equal to 33. So that first odd number is 33. If you want to fill them in, you can, but you know the next odd number should have been 35 and then 37. Those are our 3 numbers, 33, 35, 37. All right, number 16, Teo makes a necklace of X wooden beads and 6 glass beads. So I know that there are X wooden beads and there are 6 glass beads. I know that the wooden beads, they cost 50 cents, so that should be 150x at some point, and the glass beads cost 125. So that's really 125 times the 6, right? But that's really 750. Well, I've actually just written out what it's supposed to be. So on one side, I've got the number of beads, and the other, I've got the cost of said beads. Okay, the cost of those beads. So that's what my equation should look like. Have the cost versus the number, right? Or the average cost. Okay, because that's what they're talking about. So I have the average over here if I want, and I'll have the regular cost over here. I know the regular cost is the 0.50x plus the 750. Okay, and again, that's what's here on this side. Okay, that goes there. And on the other side, I'm going to have my average, which is going to be the number that I have. And that's going to be X and 6 together. And this is the one that matches that. And remember, they told me the average was 75 up there. So I'm going to throw it there. All right, that'll go here. And that is 75 cents on average for this number of beads. Okay? Number 17 says solve this inequality. So what we're going to do is distribute just like we normally do on both sides. And we're left with 4x plus 12 minus 7 is greater than or equal to 3x plus 3. Simplify, so I've got plus 5 greater than or equal to 3x plus 3. And I'm going to move, same thing I've been doing is move my variables to the left and my constants to the right. Alright, so I'm going to minus 3x on both sides. Alright, so I've got x plus 5 is greater than or equal to 3, and I'm going to move that 5 over because it's a constant. So x is supposed to be greater than or equal to -2. Obviously, none of those options match that because it wasn't in there. Okay, so the answer is actually x is greater than or equal to -2. Alright, number 18 says solve that compound inequality. Well, compound inequalities are just inequalities, but it's 2 of them. Alright, so we're going to solve that. So I'm going to solve like normal here. So I have plus 4. Alright, so I've got, and I'm just going to come back down here. So 3x is greater than 9, and I'll divide by 3. When I do that, I get x is not equal to, but greater than 3. Well, if I'm looking at my options, the only option that has x greater than 3 is A. So I can actually stop here and just choose that as my answer, because it's the only one that matches what I've got so far. Alright, and I'm just going to go ahead and clear this page fully, because I need that gone. Alright, so number 19 says solve the absolute value equation. Right, with absolute value, what you have to do, so absolute value, what you have to do is first you need to isolate the absolute value bars. And then what you're going to need to do is you're going to need to create 2 new equations. Okay, so what that will be, one of them will be a positive value and the other one will be a negative value. Alright, for whatever is in the absolute value bars. Okay. Alright, so let's isolate the absolute value bars for number 19. So we can subtract 4 from both sides. So we'll be left with negative absolute value of x is equal to -3. Alright, and then I can just divide both sides by -3. So absolute value of x is equal to +3. So now that I have that, I need to create 2 new equations where whatever's in my absolute value bars is going to be a positive and a negative. So positive x equals 3. And I'll have negative x equals 3. Alright, this one, the left one is already done where I've got x isolated. The right one, I need to divide by -1 to get x by itself, and I'll be left with x is equal to -3. So my answers are x equals +3 and x equals -3, and that's actually what C says. Alright, this plus or minus just means positive and negative of that number. Okay, so that's our answer there. Number 20, Jamie is buying 5 concert tickets. He wants his total cost to be no more than 4 above or below 80. Alright, so let's be honest. If I was writing this as 2 different equations, because that's what happens with absolute value equations, right? You have to write it with 2. If I wrote it 2 different ways, and I know I've got the cost and all this good stuff, right? So if I want it to be 4 above or 4 below the 80, what I'm going to have is I'm going to have that Jamie's got $80. He's spending it on 5 concert tickets that cost X amount for each. And he can have 4 left, or he can spend 4 more than he has, so -4. So that's really how I would have thought to do this. Well, the only way that makes this true, that matches, well, they said either 4 above or 4 below. So instead of having it like this, I can say, if I want that, 4 above, 4 below, the one that's going to match that the most, where I have 80 minus 5x, I could change that and say 80 minus 5x in absolute value bars, because that'll give me both the 4 and -4. Okay, and they say they want it no more than. The no more than is actually a less than or equal to. Okay, because I can't be above or above that, right? So it's going to be less than or equal to. So I can just change what I've got just slightly, and that's going to give me the full answer there. So less than or equal to 4 there. Okay, so that's what I would have done. I would have kind of done it backwards to make it make sense in my head, and that does that. Alright, and our final one here is writing a compound inequality for the graph. So this is actually an and compound inequality. Alright, I know it's and because it has one section for solutions, where it's that super dark section there, right? An or compound inequality is supposed to have 2 sections, okay, for the solution. I said one section for a section. One section for solutions. Okay, so with this, if I was writing this as an and statement, I would put x in the middle. I'd have my less than signs there around it. And then I just put the smaller number on the left, which is -3. I'm looking at the circles. And the larger number is 2. All right, so again, this is the smaller number. And this one's the larger number. Remember, you're only focusing on the ones that have a circle on them. Open circle means that the number is not included. And the symbols that use this is less than or greater than. A closed circle means the number is included in the solution. And the symbols that use that is less than or equal to and greater than or equal to. So if I look at -3, it has a closed circle, so I should be using either less than or equal to or greater than or equal to. We already have our less than symbol, so let's just make it less than or equal to make it true. And that should have been my answer here. But in all honesty, number or letter B was also true as well, because if I rewrite this, this actually says -3 is less than or equal to x is less than 2. So this means that x is actually greater than or equal to -3, and it's supposed to be an and. X is also less than 2. So this actually matches D as well. So both of them could have been true. All right, and that is it for our study guide. Please make sure that if you needed to review these again, please look through them again as much as you need to, and hopefully this helped. All right, thank you.